What if the voice telling you to quit went silent forever? What if the struggle you're facing right now isn't a sign to stop, but a signal that you're about to break through? You weren't given this pain to break you. You were given it to build you. This moment you're in, the pressure, the fatigue, the doubt, this is not your exit. This is your proving ground. Because no man has ever risen without first being broken. No empire has ever stood without storms. And no mind has ever been made of steel without first walking through fire. You say it's hard? Then good. That means it's working. This speech is not here to soothe you. I did not come to give you permission to stop. I came to wake up the force that lives beneath your weakness, the version of you that fights, that executes, that refuses to crawl back into comfort. Let the quitters quit. Let the fearful retreat. But you, don't you dare quit. You've come too far. You've survived too much. And everything you fought for waits just beyond this pain. So you don't stop here. You don't break here. You build here. Now stand up inside your own mind and let the world hear your silence louder than their noise. This is your hour. Let's begin. When the going gets hard, most men look for a way out. They begin to whisper lies to themselves. Maybe this wasn't meant for me. Maybe now's not the right time. Maybe I've done enough. But let me speak to the part of you that remembers who you were before the world taught you how to retreat. Pain is not your enemy. Pressure is not a sign to stop. Resistance is not a red light. It is a gatekeeper, a test, a sacred threshold that only the few, the builders, the doers, the deciders, will ever walk through. And the man who walks through it is not the same man who entered it. He is stronger, sharper, real. That's the purpose of hardship, to strip you down until all that remains is truth, until every excuse burns in the fire, until only the part of you that is unbreakable survives. Andrew Carnegie once told me something I never forgot. He said, "Adversity is the refining fire of destiny. It burns away the weak man. It leaves only the man who is ready to lead." Carnegie did not rise from privilege. He was a poor Scottish immigrant working in a telegraph office, earning almost nothing. But every hour he worked, he watched, he listened, he prepared. And when the opportunity came, he did not flinch. Because the fire he walked through, the long days, the uncertainty, the low pay, had already forged his mind. And here you are, in your own fire. And I ask you, what will this fire leave behind? Will it leave a man who folded under pressure? Or will it leave a man so focused, so steady, so commanding that the world has no choice but to move around him? Charles M. Schwab was no stranger to pressure. As the right hand of Carnegie, he faced the storms of industry, the roar of competition, the resistance of men who were older, richer, more experienced than he. But what set Schwab apart was not genius, it was resilience. He did not fold. He moved swiftly, decisively. He led from the front when others were shrinking in the shadows. I once asked him how he dealt with fear. He said, "Mr. Hill, fear is a fog, and a man must learn to walk forward even when he cannot see. You may not see your future clearly right now. You may be in the fog of fatigue, surrounded by doubt. But hear me clearly. You still walk. You still move. You still build. Because the man who waits for clarity will never lead. The man who says, 'I'll push when it's easier,' will never arrive." Let's talk of Henry Ford, a man who was told his vision was foolish, that the car was a novelty, that it would never replace the horse. Even his own engineers said his idea for an 8-cylinder engine couldn't be done. And you know what he told them? Build it anyway. He said it not once, but over and over again until they did. Because Ford understood something the average man never will, that when everything seems to resist you, it's not always the world testing you. It's your mind asking, "Do you really want this?" And you answer not with words, but with persistence, relentless execution, unbreakable identity. Ford didn't stop because it was hard. He became Ford because it was hard. And he kept going anyway. You think success comes with ease? You think the men who built nations, industries, inventions, movements, you think they did it with comfort? Number. They did it tired. They did it misunderstood. They did it surrounded by doubt from others and from themselves. But they moved anyway because they had made a decision and never once opened the door to retreat. Let me be clear with you. If you are tired right now, good. It means you've been in the arena. If you are doubting right now, good. It means you're pushing the boundaries of what you thought you were capable of. If you are under pressure, good. It means you're doing something that matters. But I will not let you quit, because quitting now is not just a betrayal of your goals. It is a betrayal of your identity. And I know the man you are becoming, the one who keeps showing up, the one who listens not to fear, but to vision, the one who would rather suffer for purpose than coast in mediocrity. Let the crowd rest, let them doubt, let them walk away when it gets heavy. But you do not get to quit, because this fire you are in, it is making you. And when you rise from it, when the world will know that you were not lucky, you were not gifted, you were not saved, you were forged. Keep going. Don't you dare quit. You must understand something now, perhaps more deeply than you ever have before. The pain you feel today is not a punishment. It is a process, a sacred rite of passage, a furnace that burns away the soft edges, the hesitations, the illusions, and leaves only iron. And yet, what do most men do when they feel that fire? They run. They look for comfort. They retreat to what is familiar. But you will not do that. You were not built to run. You were built to withstand. You were built to build. And nothing worthy has ever been built without cost. Let us speak plainly. There will be days when nothing goes your way, when the voices around you question everything you're doing, when even the small steps forward feel like dragging stone uphill. And on those days, the temptation will whisper, maybe I should pause. Maybe I should slow down. Maybe I should quit. But those whispers are not your voice. They are the voice of drift, the voice of old identity trying to drag you back to safety, to comfort, to the version of you that never finished anything. And you are done living like that. You must now speak louder than those whispers. You must say, no, I am not going anywhere. I may be tired, I may be stretched, but I am not broken. I will not fold, and I will not leave this chapter unfinished. This is the moment when your identity changes, not with a celebration, but with a choice. The choice to continue, the choice to carry the weight, even when your legs shake, the choice to not back down. When Abraham Lincoln was leading a nation through war, he was not greeted with applause. He was attacked from every side, mocked, slandered, betrayed. His cabinet questioned him. The people doubted him. The war dragged on longer than anyone expected. And still, he stood quiet, focused, unbending. He carried the burden of the nation, not because he was invincible, but because he had decided what must be done. He was not moved by noise. He was not swayed by fatigue. He was anchored to purpose. And that is what you must be now, anchored. Anchored to your mission, anchored to your future, anchored to the man you said you would become. There will be no applause for this decision, no audience watching, no instant reward, just silence and pain and progress. But make no mistake. Every day you push through this storm, you are building a life that no storm can shake. This is where you earn the crown, not when it's easy, not when you feel good, but now, when it's hard, when it's heavy, when every part of you wants to stop and you don't. The man who continues when he could quit, he becomes undeniable. And here is what the world won't tell you. Most people give up just before the moment that would have changed everything. They were one conversation away, one client away, one new habit away, one more rep, one more call, one more sunrise of discipline, and they let it go. because the going got hard. Let this burn into your mind. You are not most people. You are not average. You do not operate on feelings. You do not follow ease. You follow purpose. You follow vision. You follow a code. And that code is carved into your spirit with words like relentless, resilient, ruthless. And that code does not include quitting. When Thomas Edison was working on the electric light, he failed thousands of times. He watched his materials explode. He watched people call him a fool. He watched his own team question the mission. But do you know what he never did? He never doubted the result. He had already decided what the end would be, and every failure was simply another confirmation of progress. That is how you must now view this moment in your life. It is not a defeat. It is not a wall. It is a passage. And you are walking through it, head up, eyes forward, heart full of decision. You do not stop when it's hard. You become harder. You do not retreat from resistance. You rise through it. You do not ask, will I make it? You say, watch me build this until there's no doubt left. And if no one claps, you keep going. If no one sees the work, you keep going. If no one believes in you, you believe. You execute. You finish. Because the fire you are in right now is temporary, but the strength it will leave in you, that will last forever. Keep going, and don't you dare quit. There will come a day when all this pressure, this pain, this fatigue, this loneliness will make sense. A day when the weight you carried becomes the strength you wear. When the silence you endured becomes the stillness in your soul. When the work you did in the dark becomes the light that others follow. But that day only comes to the man who refuses to lay down. It does not come to the clever. It does not come to the entitled. It comes to the one who kept going when there was no visible reward, who built when no one believed, who didn't ask how long will this take, but simply said, as long as it takes. Let us speak again of a man I studied more than any other, Andrew Carnegie. When he first arrived in America, he was a poor immigrant boy. He had nothing but hunger for knowledge, for opportunity, for greatness. He began as a messenger boy in a telegraph office. And do you think his path upward was paved with ease? He worked long hours. He sacrificed comfort. He was overlooked, underpaid, and doubted. But he continued. Each job he took, he gave more than was expected. Each obstacle he faced, he used as training. He endured the strain because he had a vision far greater than his conditions. And through relentless forward motion, through sacrifice without applause, he built an empire of steel and became the wealthiest man of his time. But more than his fortune, it was his example that matters. He showed us that greatness is not born, it is built. And it is built in silence, in sweat, in hard decisions, in perseverance when others would have crumbled. That same blood runs through you. That same fire exists in your mind. You are not just here to survive, you are here to build, to create, to lead. And the only way to fulfill that calling is to keep walking, especially when your legs shake, because this is where most men quit. They confuse pressure for punishment. They confuse discomfort with failure. They think hard means wrong. But nothing could be further from the truth. Hard means you're being forged. Hard means you've left the old self behind. Hard means you're in the middle of the mountain, and the peak is closer than you think. Let me remind you of Charles M. Schwab, who rose from a humble clerk to the president of U.S. Steel under Andrew Carnegie. Schwab was not the most brilliant man in the room, but he had one trait that made him invaluable. He never stopped producing. When others were paralyzed by doubt or waiting for perfect plans, Schwab moved. He acted. He led. And in times of chaos, he built. That's what makes a man irreplaceable. That's what makes a man immortal in the memory of history. Not how clever he was, not how smooth his path, but how he carried the burden without breaking. And you too will become that man if you refuse to let pressure become an excuse. Let me tell you now, with absolute certainty, that this storm will pass. This chapter will close. This weight will lift. But when it does, the real question will be, who did you become because of it? Did you fold? Did you wait? Did you whimper and wish for better days? Or did you rise? Did you decide that this would be the moment that made you unshakable? Say this with me now, and say it like a man who means it. I do not shrink under pressure. I am shaped by it. I do not run from pain. I rise through it. When the going gets hard, I go harder. These are not just words. They are your weapons. Use them. Use them in the morning when the weight returns. Use them at night when doubt creeps in. Use them when the old voice says, this is too much. Because that voice is not your future. It is your past, begging you to come back. But you've already left that man behind. And what stands ahead, if you stay the course, is a life so solid, so grounded, so unbreakable, that even fear itself will not dare knock again. Keep walking and don't slow down and don't second guess and don't you dare quit. Not now, not ever. There comes a point on the path of every builder when the world goes quiet. The applause stops. The results don't come. The progress slows to a crawl. And in that silence, a question echoes so loudly it drowns out everything else. Is this still worth it? This is the test that separates men who dabble from men who dominate, because everyone begins with fire. Everyone begins with a goal, but only a few continue when the results disappear and the struggle multiplies. It is here in the dark middle, in the days when momentum vanishes, that you are either forged or forgotten. Let me tell you something few will say plainly. The pain you're feeling is not a sign to quit. It is the sign you are finally in the process of becoming, not the version of you that begins things, but the version that finishes them. Not the man who makes plans, but the man who executes through resistance. When Thomas Edison was deep into his work on the electric light, he had already faced over 5,000 failures. The money was running dry. The media mocked him. His own workers questioned whether the idea would ever work. But Edison, he refused to give up the idea because the results hadn't arrived yet. Instead, he made the results inevitable by refusing to stop. When asked by a young reporter if he ever considered giving up, he said, "Young man, I have not failed. I've just found 5,000 ways that won't work." Understand what that means. He had already decided the outcome. He didn't need to see it. He chose it. That is what men of destiny do. They commit so deeply that reality has no choice but to align. And I tell you now, you must do the same. Stop asking whether you're on the right path just because it hurts. The right path hurts the most at first. It cuts away your weakness. It reveals your doubt. It drags every excuse into the light and dares you to keep going anyway. Henry Ford was not celebrated when he decided to create a vehicle for the common man. He was laughed at, attacked. Even his most trusted engineers said the project was impossible. But Ford, he did not seek their approval. He already saw the assembly line in his mind. He already felt the product in the hands of the people. And so when they told him it couldn't be done, he told them simply, build it anyway. That is power, that is clarity, and that is the standard you must hold yourself to now. This moment you're in, this pressure, this doubt, is the gate to everything you said you wanted. But most men never pass through it. They turn back. They tell themselves they'll try again when it's easier. They lie to themselves with phrases like, it's just not the right time, or maybe this isn't meant for me. It is meant for you, but only if you finish what you started. Because dreams do not belong to the man who plans them. They belong to the man who suffers for them, who builds them when it's boring, who walks through the storm when the wind screams at him to turn back. Let me tell you what I learned from Charles M. Schwab, one of the greatest executives of the industrial age. He once told me, "Mr. Hill, the men who run when things get hard don't realize they were 10 feet from the gold." And it's true. I watched it happen again and again. Men who were one decision away, one day away, one act of discipline away from the breakthrough, quit. And it wasn't because they lacked ability. It was because they lacked endurance. So I say to you now, endure. Endure the silence, endure the pressure, endure the unseen hours, because those who continue when it's hard are the only ones who deserve the reward when it arrives. Repeat after me, and say it like you mean it. I do not pause when it gets hard. I lean in. I do not seek escape. I seek mastery. Pain is not a reason to quit. It is proof that I am being rebuilt. Let these words live in your chest. Let them anchor you when the path grows cold. Let them become your rhythm, a rhythm that fear cannot disrupt. Because the man who keeps walking, even when the light disappears, even when the applause dies, even when no one believes, he does not just survive the storm. He becomes it. There is a secret the world rarely speaks aloud, a truth known only to the few who have stood on the edge of collapse and kept moving. Your greatest strength will always be revealed when you have no strength left. Not when you're motivated, not when you're winning, but when you're tired, alone, questioning everything. It is in those moments, when most men fold, that the man of destiny is shaped. You see, when the going gets hard, your old identity begins to die. The identity that sought comfort, that wanted quick results, that needed praise to keep going. That version of you cannot survive the pressure, and that's a gift, because pressure doesn't just break men, it purifies them. Let me tell you about Abraham Lincoln. When Lincoln entered the White House, the country was already splintering. States were seceding. War was inevitable. Advisors wavered. Public confidence was low, and the weight of a divided nation sat squarely on his shoulders. But Lincoln didn't waver. He didn't look for easier answers or defer responsibility. He sat with the pressure. He carried the burden. And through that relentless endurance, he gave America its spine. He didn't become a giant because it was easy. He became one because he kept showing up when most men would have collapsed. That's the kind of man you must become now. You're not in this for a convenient victory. You're in this to evolve, to shed everything soft and fearful in you, and emerge as a man who leads his mind, commands his emotions, and moves with unwavering direction. Let me say this again. The going gets hard not to stop you, but to stretch you. You want courage? It's built when your hands shake and you move anyway. You want discipline? It's forged when your body says rest and your mind says one more. You want belief? It is grown by continuing through days when your thoughts try to betray you. Andrew Carnegie, the man who shaped my understanding of wealth and will, once told me, no man becomes powerful until he no longer requires things to be easy. He meant this, truly meant it. He didn't seek the path of least resistance. He chose the path that demanded his entire being, because he knew it was there and only there that his greatness would rise. He told me, the mountain does not grow smaller. You grow stronger. And you, my friend, are growing stronger now, even if you don't feel it yet. So let us make this practical. When the going gets hard, and it will, here is what you do. You do not retreat. You take one small action, even if it's imperfect, even if it's invisible to the world. Action, not motivation, is your lifeline. You return to your aim, revisit your definite purpose, read it aloud, reconnect to your mission. Fear multiplies in men who forget why they started. You eliminate the noise. Don't explain your fatigue to anyone. Don't seek comfort from people who've never built anything. Sit in silence and remember who you are. You rehearse your power, repeat it. I was made for this. Say it with certainty, not because you feel strong, but because you decide to be. And then you continue. You continue when no one's watching. You continue when the applause stops. You continue when fear whispers, maybe this isn't worth it. Because your consistency in pain, in pressure, in silence, is the evidence that you are becoming a man this world cannot break. So let me leave you with this. Say it out loud, with force, with fire, with no hesitation. I am not done. I am not finished. I do not quit. I rise. Because the man who becomes unstoppable is not the one who starts fast. He is the one who refuses to stop no matter how slow the path becomes. And that man is you. There will come a moment in every man's journey, a quiet, almost invisible moment, when the pain becomes louder than the progress, when the goal you once shouted with certainty now feels like a whisper beneath the weight of struggle. That moment is not a sign to stop. It is a signal that you are nearing the threshold where most turn back, and the few press forward. Let me be clear. Pain is not the enemy. The enemy is comfort, the seductive whisper that tells you to settle, to ease up, to coast. Comfort is the true killer of greatness because it doesn't arrive like a storm. It shows up like a warm bed on a cold morning and convinces you to stay there forever. Charles M. Schwab, one of the greatest steel magnates of his time, understood this with deadly clarity. Schwab worked under Carnegie, not because he was the most skilled man in the room, but because he had the fire to endure pressure most men avoided. When production quotas weren't met, when tensions rose in the ranks, Schwab didn't hide behind reports or delay action. He walked directly into the furnace of the problem and stayed there until a solution appeared. Why? Because he didn't seek comfort, he sought growth, and he understood that growth and comfort are enemies. That's the lesson here. Pain is not punishment. It's preparation. It means you are no longer living on the level of the man you used to be. You are stepping into something higher, something heavier. And the muscles of your mind, your will, and your character are breaking and reforming under the strain. That's not failure. That's formation. And here's what the average man misses. When the pain increases, they slow down. They justify quitting. They say things like, maybe this isn't meant to be. But the few, the very few who rise, they take pain as the confirmation that their growth has begun. Let me tell you about Thomas Edison. Edison was not born into brilliance. He was not the most naturally gifted thinker. But he had something rare, tolerance for discomfort. 10,000 times he failed to produce a working light bulb. 10,000 times. Not 10, not 100. 10,000. Now imagine that. Imagine the mental pressure, the financial stress, the public ridicule, the internal doubt, and still, he moved forward. When asked why he didn't give up, he said something the weak-minded couldn't understand. I haven't failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. Now pause. Reflect. That is not a man running from pain. That is a man who embraced it so fully, so relentlessly, that the pain became irrelevant, just part of the process. And if he could do that, with the world doubting him, with nothing but setbacks in his hands, what excuse have you? You are not too tired. You are too comfortable. You are not broken. You are being broken open. You are not stuck. You are being called to move with more force than ever before. So here is what I demand of you in these moments when the going gets hard. Do not soften. Do not retreat into logic. Do not disguise your fear as taking a break. Lean in. Lean in so far that fear loses its footing. Lean in so hard that comfort can no longer hold you, because the man who presses forward while in pain becomes the man who cannot be stopped when strength returns. Say this now with your chest. Pain does not weaken me. It sharpens me. Comfort is not my goal. Growth is. When it gets hard, I go harder. This is the turning point, not in your work, not in your environment, in your identity. Because from this point forward, pain will no longer be your reason to stop. It will be your reason to rise. Shall we continue? If you were to look at the man you admire, the one whose resolve never shakes, whose decisions are final, whose movements feel inevitable, you might think he was born that way. But you would be wrong. He was not born unbreakable. He became unbreakable through one thing: repetition. Not talent, not luck, not even brilliance. Repetition. Let me tell you something most men will never grasp. Your identity, that voice in your head that tells you who you are, is not permanent. It is a pattern. And patterns can be rewritten, rebuilt, reinforced. If you do it long enough, if you speak it with enough emotion, if you act on it with enough consistency, the old self falls away and a new one is born. This is not inspiration, this is engineering. Let us return to Henry Ford, a man who had little formal education, few early advantages, and no immediate success. But Ford repeated one thing more than anything else: belief. He said, "Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right." That was not a clever quote for a poster. That was the bedrock of his being. He did not repeat limitations. He repeated possibility. He did not rehearse failure. He rehearsed certainty. And in doing so, over and over, day after day, he trained his mind to ignore doubt until doubt no longer recognized him. The question is, what have you been rehearsing? Have you been rehearsing hesitation, replaying failure, repeating thoughts that belong to someone weaker than the man you are becoming? Because repetition is not just what you do, it's who you become. And every time you repeat weakness, you reinforce it. Every time you repeat doubt, you build a mind that sees through the lens of fear. But every time you repeat strength, even if it doesn't feel real yet, you begin to install a new identity, one that does not flinch, one that does not fold. Thomas Edison knew this. His laboratories were not just places of invention, they were temples of repetition. He didn't succeed by inspiration. He succeeded by consistency. Each failure was not a step back. It was a step forward because it was embedded in a larger pattern. Keep going no matter what. That is the mindset of mastery. So now I tell you, if you want to be unbreakable when life applies pressure, don't wait for motivation. Build discipline. Don't wait for courage. Repeat courage. Say it aloud. Not once, not twice, but every day. I do not hesitate. I do not fold. I act without delay. Write it. Speak it. Walk it. Until the identity you repeat becomes the only one you recognize. You must begin to schedule your identity, not your tasks, your identity. Each morning, you speak who you are becoming. Each evening, you confirm who you were that day. And in between, you act like it's already done. This is how men become bulletproof. Not by luck, not by talk, by repetition. You do not become fearless by accident. You become fearless by choice, repeated until it becomes instinct. So I ask you again, who are you rehearsing? The old you, who doubts, who pauses, who drifts, or the new you, who speaks with clarity, acts with force, and refuses to go backward? Choose, and then repeat it relentlessly. Say it now with certainty. Every day I repeat strength. Every day I install discipline. Every day I become a man who cannot be broken. This is not philosophy. This is your blueprint. Print it into your soul, because the man who masters repetition masters himself. And the man who masters himself fears nothing. Let us continue. You say you want strength. You say you want power. You say you want to become the man who can't be shaken. But let me ask you, what do you do when pressure comes? Because every man talks about greatness until the weight hits, until the trial shows up, until life presses its hand against your chest and asks, "Do you really mean it?" Pressure is not the enemy. Pressure is the test. It is the proof of who you are. When you build a sword, it must pass through fire. When you build a man, he must pass through resistance. That's how greatness is forged, not in peace, but in conflict, not in applause, but in silence. Not when things are easy, but when everything screams quit and you say no. Thomas Edison understood this better than most. The man failed over 10,000 times before the light bulb gave birth to success. And do you think those failures were quiet? Do you think they didn't come with voices from the world, from his own mind, saying enough is enough? But Edison didn't flinch because he had already decided. The pressure didn't scare him. It clarified him. It revealed the steel in his spirit. And that's what pressure does. It reveals you. If you fold, it means you never truly built the foundation you claim to have. But if you rise, even if it hurts, even if you shake, even if your hands bleed, then the pressure becomes your birthplace, not your grave. Abraham Lincoln, in the darkest night of American history during the Civil War, was being torn from every side. Half the country hated him. His allies doubted him. The blood of brothers spilled on soil meant for union. And yet, Lincoln did not fold. He bore the pressure. He passed through it because he had a vision of unity, stronger than the pull of destruction. That vision made him unshakable. You too will face your war. It may not be on a battlefield. It may not be public, but it will come. The day when your strength is not theoretical, it must be proven. And that day will define you. Let me be very clear. If you run from pressure, you run from power. If you avoid stress, you avoid strength. If you seek only ease, you sentence yourself to weakness. But if you embrace the pressure, if you see it as the opportunity to become the man you claim to be, then every burden becomes a tool. Every trial becomes a teacher. And every storm becomes a forge for the unbreakable spine you're building. Let me give you a principle that will serve you for the rest of your life. Pain is not punishment. It is permission to rise. The moment you feel resistance, that is the moment most men quit. But not you. Not anymore. Because now you know pressure isn't in your way. It's your path. And every second you endure it, you become harder to stop. Say this aloud. Pressure does not weaken me. It reveals my strength. Resistance is not the end. It is the beginning. Every time life tries to break me, I grow sharper. You do not become a diamond in silence. You become a diamond under the weight. And the only question is, will you endure long enough to emerge on the other side like unshaken, unbroken, untouchable? Repeat this daily, and you will. Because the man who trains under pressure is the man who cannot be defeated. Let us move forward. There is a truth that every man must face sooner or later, and most wait too long to face it. You cannot reach the summit with one hand still holding the safety rope. You cannot conquer your calling while keeping a door open to retreat. If you want to win, you must remove the option to lose, not in the world, but in your own mind. Burn the bridge. The man who leaves an escape route never commits fully. His energy is divided. His mind is conflicted. And fear? Fear lives in the presence of options. Options to delay, options to retreat, options to play it safe. But the man who decides, really decides, leaves no room for backtracking. He burns the boat. He shatters the lifeline. He commits to the path, even if the road turns steep, dark, and painful. Because for him, the outcome is not a possibility, it is a demand. Andrew Carnegie taught me this law firsthand. He once said, "A man who seeks greatness must first destroy every excuse that allows him to remain small." And he lived it. When he decided to rise from poverty and become the world's industrial leader, he didn't leave a back door open to comfort or mediocrity. He worked like his life depended on it, because it did. Carnegie didn't chase wealth. He chased commitment, full, unflinching commitment to a singular aim, and that commitment made every obstacle temporary. Henry Ford did the same. When he faced financial collapse, public humiliation, and fierce competition, he didn't search for another industry to pivot into. He didn't entertain thoughts of failure. He didn't ask, "What if it doesn't work?" He said, "It will work, because I refuse to entertain anything else." That's what burning the bridge looks like. And it's not poetic, it's strategic, and it's not emotional, it's essential. Because so long as you can go back, you will. The moment pressure rises, the subconscious mind listens closely. If you feed it doubt, even subtle doubt, even hidden doubt, it will find a way to sabotage you. But when you say, "There is no going back," and you reinforce it with repetition, decision, and action, your subconscious aligns with the mission. It says, "We have no other choice but to win." Let me tell you plainly, You will not make it to the end of your purpose while dragging the past behind you. You will not become the man you were born to be while still clinging to the excuses of the man you used to be. So ask yourself, what bridges must you burn? What exits must you close? What version of you must you bury so that a stronger one can rise? This is not about recklessness. It's about finality. It's about telling your own mind, we do not turn back. Say this now. I do not entertain escape. I do not flirt with failure. I move forward, and I do not look back. Let those words become the wall that keeps fear out. Let them become the foundation that your identity is built upon. You don't need more motivation. You need more finality. You need to burn the bridge that once kept fear alive and walk into your future with nothing but fire behind you, because the man who leaves no way back becomes the man who must find a way forward. And he always does. Let us press into the next part, where we will destroy the illusion of perfect timing and unlock the mindset of immediate execution. Shall we? There is a dangerous lie that has stopped more men than failure ever could. It is the myth of the right time, the belief that one day, when the stars align, when the pressure fades, when the finances are perfect, when the confidence arrives, then a man will act. But let me make it clear, there is no right time. There is only now and not now. That's it. Every other category is fiction. The man who waits for ideal conditions is the man who dies with his best work still trapped inside his mind. Thomas Edison didn't wait for permission. He didn't wait for the perfect team, the perfect lab, the perfect headline. He began, he acted, and he failed more times than most men ever attempt. But those failures were action failures, not hesitation failures. And that is why he succeeded. Understand this deeply. Motion attracts momentum, but hesitation attracts more hesitation. Every time you delay, your subconscious mind hears the delay and thinks, this is dangerous. We aren't ready. Let's not move. And so it wires you with fear. And soon the idea that once lit your soul now terrifies you. Not because it's impossible, but because you paused. Let me share something that Henry Ford understood better than any man in his generation. Speed matters. Not speed in results, speed in decision, speed in execution. Ford once said, you can't build a reputation on what you are going to do. Think about that. He didn't become one of the wealthiest men in the world by waiting for everyone to agree. He acted before they believed. He built before they clapped. He moved and forced the world to adjust. The most dangerous habit a man can form is hesitation, because it disguises itself as wisdom. It looks responsible. It feels intelligent. It sounds like just being cautious. But in truth, it's fear in a tuxedo. It's fear in disguise, and it robs men of their destiny by convincing them to wait. You must kill this belief now. The belief that tomorrow will be better. The belief that someday you'll be ready. Someday is the deathbed of dreams. No man becomes great by accident. No man looks back at a life of mastery and says, I waited until it felt perfect. He says, I moved when it was hard. I acted when I didn't feel ready. I trusted my decision more than my emotions. Abraham Lincoln did not wait for peace before taking action. He made war with injustice. He made bold declarations in times of division. He did not ask the nation to calm down first. He stepped into the storm because the mission mattered more than the moment. And that's what you must do. You must begin before you feel ready. You must move even when your hands tremble. You must trust your identity, not your feelings. Say this now. I do not wait to feel strong. I act, and strength follows. I am not a man who waits. I am a man who moves. The time is now, because I say it is. That is what the subconscious understands. Repeated commands with emotional conviction. You see, when you act before you feel ready, something amazing happens. Your nervous system catches up. Your confidence builds in the action. Your mind begins to obey your identity instead of your excuses. This is the law of power. Action rewires the man. You don't act because you feel ready, and you feel ready because you acted. So I challenge you, stop looking for the right time. It does not exist. The clock is your enemy. The calendar is a coward's tool when it is used to delay destiny. Your mission is waiting. Your next step is waiting. And fear? Fear is hoping you'll think about it a little longer. Don't. Move now, and let the world watch in confusion as you build without permission. There is a reason most men fail to finish what they begin. It is not because they lack skill, and it is not because they lack resources. It is because they lack command over the one thing that governs every decision, every action, every moment of courage or retreat. That thing is emotion. Let me speak to you with absolute clarity. The man who does not control his emotions will never control his destiny. Emotions are like weather patterns. They change, they shift, they come and go with no warning, no schedule, no guarantee. If your sense of direction depends on how you feel, you will be a slave to moods. You will act when happy, stall when tired, and fold when challenged. The truth is this: feelings are not facts. They are suggestions, whispers, temporary guests in the house of your mind. But most men treat them like kings, obeying every rise, every fall, every inner signal, as if emotion equals truth. It does not. Emotion is reactive. Purpose is proactive. Andrew Carnegie once told me, "The man who learns to rule himself will soon rule many." He did not mean rule through force. He meant rule through example, through presence, through the ability to stand firm when others collapse. That begins with one skill: emotional mastery. Let me ask you, how often have you betrayed your future because of a temporary emotion? How many times have you given in to fear, to doubt, to anger, to fatigue, and chosen the easier path? The truth is, it's not the difficult days that define a man. It's who he becomes on those difficult days. When the pressure mounts, when the plan fails, when you wake up with a storm inside you, what do? Most men retreat. They justify, they delay. They say things like, "No, not today. I'm not in the right headspace. I'll get back on track tomorrow." But here is the reality. Every time you give your emotions the final word, you weaken your identity. You teach your subconscious that your feelings are more powerful than your mission. And soon, that becomes your rhythm. But the man who masters himself, he acts despite how he feels. He does not deny his emotions, he overrules them. That is what separates the builder from the dreamer. Let me give you an example. Thomas Edison had every reason to quit. 10,000 failures, public mockery, financial strain, the pressure of time, expectation, and doubt. But he did not allow frustration or fatigue to become his guide. He acted anyway. And in that decision, he trained his nervous system, his subconscious mind, and his very soul to follow identity, not emotion. When asked how he endured such relentless failure, Edison replied, "I have not failed. I've found 10,000 ways that won't work." Do you understand the strength behind those words? That is not just a clever saying, and it is a discipline of emotional command. Now, let me speak to you directly. There will be days when you don't want to continue, when your body aches, when your heart feels heavy, when the outcome is unclear and your mind is filled with doubt. And on those days, you must act anyway, because the man you are becoming, the real you, is not determined by how you feel. He is revealed by how you respond when your emotions scream for retreat. Emotional control is not about pretending. It is not about suppressing your pain. It is about overriding it. It is about being the captain of your ship when the sea is wild. Henry Ford was no stranger to emotional storms. He was criticized by newspapers, betrayed by partners, doubted by the masses. Yet he continued to build because he had trained himself to act with mechanical consistency. Whether the day was easy or brutal, Ford moved forward. That consistency became his edge. So how do you build this kind of control? Let me teach you the discipline. Name the emotion, but don't obey it. When the fear rises, say, "This is fear." When anger comes, say, "This is anger." But then you say, "I do not obey this. I act anyway." Why? Because naming separates you from the feeling. It removes the illusion that you are the emotion. You are not. You are the observer, and the observer can choose. Anchor yourself to identity, not mood. Your identity must be more powerful than how you feel in a single moment. You must rehearse this truth every day. I am the man who moves no matter what. Say it aloud. Say it often. Let your subconscious hear it until it becomes default. Because if your identity is tied to action, not comfort, your actions will rise above your state. Create rituals that activate power. The greatest men I've studied did not wait to feel powerful. They had rituals to summon it. Andrew Carnegie meditated daily on his definite purpose. Charles Schwab would begin each morning by reviewing his mission, not checking the news or gossip. You must do the same. Create anchors. It may be your affirmations, a cold shower, a walk in silence, a declaration in the mirror. Whatever it is, repeat it daily, because repetition creates emotional stability. Expect resistance and welcome it. The builder does not curse the hammer for being heavy. He trains with it. So when the emotion comes, the fear, the doubt, the fatigue, do not be shocked. Welcome it like an old rival. Smile and say, "You came again? Good. Let's dance." And then you act. You move anyway. Let me remind you what Abraham Lincoln carried on his shoulders: the fate of a divided nation, the burden of civil war, the screams of public criticism. And yet, he endured. He wrote. He led. He did not allow his private pain to become public paralysis. That is emotional control. It is not about being numb. It is about being so aligned with purpose that the emotions of the moment cannot detour you from the mission. Say this with me now. I am not my feelings. I am my decisions. I do not obey emotion. I obey mission. I feel fear. I feel doubt. But I move anyway because I lead my state. These are not affirmations. These are commands. You speak them not to soothe yourself, but to restructure yourself. Because every time you act with power while feeling weak, you build a spine made of steel. And over time, the fear that once ruled you becomes a whisper. The doubt that once stalled you becomes irrelevant. The hesitation that once kept you in place becomes impossible to access, because your identity no longer allows it. This, my friend, is the fruit of emotional control. You do not wait for peace to move. You bring peace with your movement. You do not seek calm. You embody it. And when the going gets hard, when the weight is heavy, you do not collapse. You rise, you act, and the world adjusts. Let us now move forward into the next and final part of this speech, where we plant the flag of finality and declare war on retreat itself. We will bring together everything we have learned and finish what we started. Are you ready? Let us now speak the final word, not to conclude, but to begin again with more certainty, more power, more fire than you have ever known. Because this is not the end of a speech. This is the birth of a new man. And that birth does not happen with a single decision. It happens with repetition. You must hear these words again. You must speak these truths again. You must return to this message, not once, not twice, but daily, until the version of you who used to hesitate, who used to fold, who used to shrink, is no longer alive. Because the transformation you desire is not a spark. It is a rhythm. It is the daily, deliberate, unrelenting reinforcement of identity until it becomes unquestionable. You do not listen to this once and change. You install it. You do not treat this as inspiration. You treat it as instruction. You do not wait for the message to return to you. You return to it. That is what the greatest men I ever studied understood. Andrew Carnegie did not become powerful through a single conversation or flash of insight. He returned to his beliefs every day. He repeated his purpose. He fed his mind with the same truths again and again, until there was no more room left for contradiction. He did not meditate once. He meditated forever. Henry Ford, too, knew the law. When he said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right, he wasn't being poetic. He was being precise. He was describing the science of belief by repetition. He installed the thought of success so deeply that the thoughts of doubt had no oxygen to live. You must do the same. This speech is not a message. It is a mirror. One you must return to until the reflection becomes who you are. You must rise every morning and hear it again. You must walk with it in your ears when the day feels heavy. You must close your eyes at night and rehearse the lines that call you to rise above the fear, the fatigue, the fleeting moods. Because every time you repeat this speech, you drive it deeper. You dig a new trench in the landscape of your subconscious. And that trench becomes the path your thoughts begin to walk, automatically. Let me be clear. The man who listens once is entertained. The man who listens 10 times is inspired. But the man who listens daily and speaks the words with power, he becomes transformed. This is the law of autosuggestion. This is the science of identity. You must burn these truths into your soul. Say this with me now. I will not forget who I am becoming. I do not let fear rewrite my programming. I repeat power until power becomes natural. Because the truth is simple, my friend. You are not weak. You are not broken. You are simply untrained. And the training begins with repetition. Every man who became great, Edison, Carnegie, Ford, Schwab, Lincoln, they all knew the same secret. If you repeat belief with emotion long enough, it replaces every limitation. So I say this now with force and finality. Do not leave this message behind. Do not move on to the next thing. Do not treat this speech as another dose of motivation. This is your discipline now. You wake up, you play this speech. You walk alone. You repeat its words. You feel doubt creeping in. You override it with these lines. Because repetition is not boring, it is the chisel that shapes the stone. And if you want to be forged, and if you want to be unshakable, immovable, undeniable, then you must hammer these truths into your spirit daily. You will forget, you will drift. That is human. But if you repeat, if you return, if you recommit to these truths again and again, eventually you will wake up one morning, and the man who feared the world, he will be gone, and in his place, a man who moves with silence, a man who walks through resistance like wind, a man who no longer hopes for strength, because strength has become his default. Repeat. That is the instruction. Not tomorrow and now. Repeat until doubt cannot find your name. Repeat until hesitation cannot enter your posture. Repeat until your voice carries the weight of identity, not effort. Repeat until your actions no longer require motivation. Repeat until discipline becomes nature. And when the going gets hard, as it will not collapse. You will not cry out for help. You will not retreat into the past. You will stand not because you feel like it, but because you have trained for it. And when that moment comes, when you face the trial, you will not say, I don't know what to do. You will hear these words echo in your soul. You will hear this rhythm, this fire, this standard, and you will move because repetition built you for this. So say it one last time with the full power of your voice. I do not need to feel ready. I repeat readiness. I do not search for strength. I speak it. I do not listen once. I live this daily. This is your final word, your beginning, your new rhythm, your rebirth. And then now, return to the start and begin again. Let it repeat. There is a moment in every conversation where power shifts, a moment where one voice becomes the leader and the other becomes the follower. You have felt this. At times, you were the one who commanded the room without trying, and at other times, you watched your influence slip through your fingers. This message begins at that exact fault line. Most people believe persuasion is about clever words, charm, or quick wit. They are wrong. Persuasion begins long before the first sentence is spoken. It begins in the mind of the one who speaks. And if you master that mind, your own, you will master every room you enter. Let me confront you with a truth you may have avoided. The world rarely listens to the man who merely talks. It listens to the man whose thought carries weight. You have met him before, the one who speaks quietly, yet others lean in. The one whose presence alone shifts the tone of a meeting. The one whose words land with such force that arguments crumble before they even begin. That man is not lucky. He is trained. Ask yourself honestly, how many opportunities have slipped away because your voice failed to carry conviction? How many times did you know exactly what you wanted to say, yet the moment evaporated before you found the courage or clarity to speak with authority? How many conversations ended with you thinking, I should have said more, I should have said it differently, I should have said it with strength? This is the cost of untrained communication. It is not small. It touches your career, your relationships, your income, your influence, your destiny. A man who cannot persuade will always live beneath a man who can. But persuasion, real persuasion, does not mean manipulation. It means leading the mind of another by first disciplining your own. It means understanding the unseen forces that move human thought: desire, fear, certainty, confidence, imagination, and speaking in a way that awakens them with precision. Before I reveal how this is done, you must understand the danger of entering another conversation without this knowledge. Every time you speak without purpose, you surrender authority. Every time you allow someone else to define the tone, you abdicate power. Every time you hesitate, the moment closes like a door. Communication is not neutral. It is won or lost. You may wonder why certain men command loyalty, inspire action, and ignite belief with a single sentence. It is not their vocabulary that gives them power. It is their definiteness. They know precisely what they want another to feel, think, or do. And every word they speak marches toward that aim. Most people speak to be heard. Persuasive men speak to create an effect. You must decide which man you intend to be. Think of the speeches that stirred nations, the conversations that forged alliances, the simple phrases that turned strangers into allies and doubters into supporters. Behind each one was a mind trained in the psychology of influence, a mind that understood this law. People follow the voice that knows where it is going. Now pause, feel that, because that is the first key of persuasive communication: certainty. When your mind is certain, your words become instruments of intention. When your mind is uncertain, your words become noise. But certainty alone is not enough. You must learn to speak to the underlying motives of those you wish to persuade. Every man breathes the same unseen currents: desire for gain, fear of loss, hunger for belonging, respect for strength, admiration for conviction. He may hide these motives, but they govern him all the same. To master communication, you must speak to these deeper impulses, not to the surface of his intellect. Consider this. How often have you attempted to reason with someone only to find logic powerless? How often have you explained your viewpoint with clarity, only to be met with resistance? That is because persuasion is not the science of intellect. It is the art of influence. The mind follows emotion first, reasoning second. Learn to guide emotion, and thought will follow as naturally as a shadow. But there is something even more powerful. The most persuasive communicators do not speak at people. They speak into them. Their words bypass resistance because they address the truth a man already feels, but cannot yet articulate. They awaken what he knows but has not expressed. They give voice to what lies unspoken in his own heart. And when you reflect a man's inner world back to him with accuracy, he follows your guidance instinctively. Let me reveal another truth. Persuasive communication requires command over silence. Weak men fill every gap with chatter. Persuasive men let silence do its work. Silence draws attention. Silence builds anticipation. Silence creates focus. When you speak into silence, your words land with 10 times the weight. But persuasion demands more still. It requires that you stand before others with an identity stronger than their doubt. If you speak with the posture of uncertainty, your words betray you. You must build within yourself the unwavering conviction that your message deserves attention, that confidence is felt long before your argument is understood. And allow me to tell you something crucial. Your influence will always mirror your internal state. If you carry confusion, your speech confuses. If you carry fear, your speech weakens. If you carry authority, your speech commands. Master your inner world, and your outer world will follow with precision. You may think persuasion is for leaders, entrepreneurs, or speakers alone, but persuasion is for every man who wishes to rise. Every promotion requires it. Every relationship depends on it. Every opportunity responds to it. And every goal demands it. If you cannot persuade, you cannot lead. If you cannot lead, you cannot advance. Now imagine, just imagine, what your life would become if your voice carried the force of conviction, the precision of purpose, the magnetism of confidence. Imagine entering any room and feeling the atmosphere bend in your direction. Imagine speaking and knowing that your words will land exactly where they are intended. Imagine living a life where you are no longer ignored, misunderstood, or overlooked. This is not fantasy, it is law. And once you understand the psychology behind persuasive communication, you will never again speak like a man hoping to be believed. You will speak like a man who cannot be denied. So steady yourself now, guard your attention. You are about to learn how to speak with the influence, clarity, and power that commands respect. The psychology of persuasion is not complicated, but it is decisive. And once you master it, the world will listen. Every man carries within him a voice that the world can hear, but few ever discover the one that the world must obey. They speak from the lips, not from the depths. They choose words, but neglect the force that gives words life, thought. For words are only vessels. It is the power that fills them that determines whether they sink or sail. There are two forms of language spoken in every conversation: the language of words and the language of conviction. The first is audible to the ear. The second is felt by the spirit. One may mispronounce a sentence and still persuade. Another may speak with perfect diction and fail utterly. The difference lies in vibration, the unseen tone of certainty that travels beneath sound and governs it. You cannot learn this art by imitation. The copyist borrows another man's gesture, his phrasing, his poise, but not his power. Power cannot be borrowed. It must be cultivated within until the mind and the message are one. Before you learn to speak, you must learn to believe, for no sentence can rise higher than the faith that gives it birth. True persuasion is not a contest of clever words. It is a contest of inner states. Men listen first to what you are and then to what you say. If the two disagree, they will forget your words and remember only the contradiction. But if they agree, your voice becomes law to the subconscious minds of those who hear it. You cease merely speaking. You begin transmitting. Consider the story of a timid clerk who once trembled at the sound of his own name when called by a superior. His speech was hesitant, his opinions silenced by doubt. Yet within him stirred an unrest that would not die, the sense that fear was no fit companion for a man. He resolved to master confidence. Each day he practiced the posture of decisiveness until it became natural. That timid clerk was Andrew Carnegie, who rose to command an empire of steel and men. His transformation began not with machinery, but with mind. Carnegie discovered a law. Before a man can command others, he must command himself. The trembling voice of uncertainty cannot direct strong men. He built conviction the way a builder lays stone, thought upon thought, decision upon decision, until confidence stood complete. When he spoke, others heard the echo of his purpose. They did not follow his sentence, they followed his certainty. Understand this. Persuasion begins the moment the mind ceases to seek permission and begins to project intention. The man who enters a room to convince is weaker than the man who enters to declare. For the latter has already decided what must be done, and the world senses it. There is no arrogance in certainty when it springs from service. It is the calm assurance that truth, once spoken with faith, will command its own obedience. People read your faith before they hear your phrase. They see in your bearing the sum of your belief. The tone of self-trust precedes the tone of speech. You cannot feign conviction, for the subconscious of others is more accurate than any ear. It detects weakness in hesitation, fear in over-explanation, uncertainty in every hurried word. He who governs his breath, posture, and silence governs the emotions of his listener. The body is the outer symbol of the mind's order. A straight spine, an unhurried gesture, a controlled breath, these announce mastery before you speak. Even silence, when born of confidence, persuades. The anxious talker, seeking approval through noise, loses the crown that stillness alone bestows. Calmness in voice is born of clarity in mind. The tongue merely obeys the ruler thought. If the mind is scattered, the voice trembles. If the mind is ordered, the words march as soldiers behind a single flag. Before you attempt to influence another, bring order to your own ranks of thought. Decide precisely what you wish to convey, what effect you intend to create, what purpose your words must serve, then speak as one issuing a command, not as one offering a suggestion. Most men rush to speak merely to be heard. The wise man waits to speak to be understood. Patience is not hesitation, it is poise. The king of speech rules through timing. He knows that silence before a sentence gives birth to authority, that a pause before a truth multiplies its power. The impatient talker forfeits attention. The measured speaker gathers it like treasure. Before every sentence, make this silent affirmation. Before I speak, I decide. Before I decide, I believe. Therefore, when I speak, my words must move men. This is not poetry, but discipline. The mind that repeats such command will soon shape itself to match its order until confidence becomes habit and habit becomes nature. There is a law in nature that cannot be broken. Energy moves from the stronger to the weaker current. In every conversation, there are two forces, the will to lead and the will to yield. The one whose thought is clearest unconsciously becomes the leader. This is why those who are definite always influence those who are doubtful. Definite thought emits energy. Uncertain thought consumes it. When you next speak, ask yourself, do I seek approval or do I project conviction? If you seek approval, your tone will betray dependence. If you project conviction, your tone will carry command. You must learn to hear your own voice as others hear it, not merely as sound, but as atmosphere. Every word you utter changes the mental climate of those who listen. Speak warmth, and hearts open. Speak fear, and they close. In my years of study, I have never known a man of enduring success who spoke without deliberation. Even their simplest words carried design. They never wasted a phrase. Their speech was measured, their tone quiet, their faith unshakable. The reason is simple. Such men think before they speak. They send thought ahead of voice as a herald to prepare the way. A man once asked Henry Ford how he inspired thousands of men to act with unity and zeal. Ford answered, "Because I never speak until I am certain what I wish to say." His words were few, but each bore the weight of thought. When Ford spoke, men acted, not because his sentences were elaborate, but because his mind was resolved. Certainty compresses energy. When released in speech, it strikes like lightning, brief, bright, decisive. Learn to prepare the mind before you prepare the mouth. When you know inwardly that your message is true, your tone will reveal it. Thought and belief are the invisible draftsmen of speech. Each word you speak is a structure built upon them. If the foundation wavers, the building collapses, no matter how fine its ornament. To master communication, master thinking. Fill the mind with clear images of what you wish to express. Feel it first, live it inwardly, until the idea possesses you. Then speak as one describing what he has seen, not what he has guessed. The listener will sense that certainty and surrender to it. For men follow the one who has seen further than they have dared imagine. Imagine for a moment a great orchestra tuning before performance. Each instrument sounds discordant until the conductor lifts his baton. In that instant, chaos becomes order. Such is the difference between the untrained speaker and the master of persuasion. The latter is conductor of his own mind. Every note, thought, breath, gesture, word plays in harmony. Listeners feel the rhythm and cannot resist its pull. Repetition is the key that locks certainty into habit. Repeat your belief daily until doubt tires of visiting. Repeat your aim until your tone unconsciously declares it. Repetition engraves authority into the subconscious, and the subconscious governs voice more than will. That is why men trained in conviction appear naturally confident. They have rehearsed certainty until it became instinct. The untrained speaker thinks only of words. The master thinks of results. He begins with a definite aim: to inspire, to calm, to awaken, to persuade. Each phrase becomes a step toward that goal. There is no waste, no confusion, no contradiction. The mind of purpose dictates the rhythm, and the voice obeys. Others sense that purpose and yield to it willingly, for all men crave leadership of conviction. There is an invisible law that rewards definiteness. Life listens to the man who knows what he wants. Likewise, people listen to the speaker who knows what he means. Your clarity of thought becomes their clarity of decision. Confuse them, and they withdraw. Guide them, and they follow. When you stand before others, remember this sacred truth. Every audience, whether of one or of many, seeks certainty. They long to feel the presence of one who knows where he is going. Give them that gift. Speak not to impress, but to illuminate. Speak as though you hold a torch in darkness, and your task is to lead others to sight. The glow of your confidence will be the proof of your sincerity. Do not rush. Power travels slowly, like a river that moves mountains through persistence. The hurried man betrays anxiety. The steady man transmits control. It is better to speak 10 words born of conviction than 1,000 born of confusion. The listener forgets the number of your words, but remembers forever the tone of your authority. Every master of communication carries a serenity that cannot be faked. It is born of inner certainty. When the mind is definite, the voice is calm. When the heart is sure, the hands are steady. When purpose is clear, expression becomes inevitable. Calmness itself persuades, for men feel safe in the presence of composure. Train daily in the silence of thought. Before speaking, gather your ideas, polish them in reflection, and clothe them in faith. Then, when you open your mouth, every sentence will bear the weight of preparation. You will no longer fear forgetting words, for the idea itself will supply them. The man who trusts his idea never lacks expression. Never mistake loudness for power. A whisper from conviction reaches further than a shout from uncertainty. Volume without faith is noise. Quietness with purpose is command. Learn to modulate tone as one directs light, gentle where persuasion demands, firm where conviction must strike. The controlled voice is irresistible because it mirrors the controlled mind. Let this be your rule. Think deeply, decide firmly, speak calmly. Every word spoken thus becomes seed of influence. The harvest may not appear at once, but the law of cause and effect guarantees its return. Every great orator, every leader of men, every teacher who stirred nations began not with talent, but with definite thought. Their power was invisible before it was audible. Therefore, remember always, the invisible source of power in speech is mental clarity combined with faith. You may decorate sentences, polish diction, and practice posture, but until your thought is ordered, your speech will lack soul. The world does not need more words. It needs more conviction. Speak from conviction, and your words will live longer than your voice. Hold this final affirmation in mind. My thought is definite. My belief is firm. My words are the echo of my conviction. I speak not to please, but to reveal truth, and truth obeys me. And so we begin this journey of persuasion where all power begins, not with vocabulary, but with vision, not with sound, but with certainty. For the quality of your thinking will forever determine the command of your speaking. The voice of influence is born from unity. When thought, emotion, and expression move as one, they form a current of power that no resistance can withstand. Most men fail not because they lack words, but because their words betray a divided self. Their lips speak confidence, while their eyes confess doubt. Their sentences declare certainty, while their posture whispers fear. The listener feels the fracture and withdraws. Persuasion begins when the inner and outer man meet in agreement. When the thought is pure, the emotion true, and the voice aligned, the effect is magnetic. You cannot deceive harmony. It must be genuine. The man whose mind and message are one commands without effort. Others feel in him what they long to feel in themselves, unity of purpose. Imagine the untrained speaker. He thinks of results while trying to remember his words, worries about approval while forcing enthusiasm, and hopes for success while fearing failure. His energy splinters like light through broken glass. The persuasive man, however, concentrates all rays of thought upon one point. His belief, feeling, and voice fuse into a single beam that burns through doubt. I call this the triangle of power. Thought is its apex, emotion its fuel, expression its vehicle. When one side weakens, influence collapses. When all sides support one another, persuasion becomes inevitable. The mind conceives, the heart believes, and the voice transmits. This is the secret rhythm of influence known to every great leader and communicator who ever lived. Most men attempt to persuade with reason alone, forgetting that reason without emotion is a lamp without flame. Thought provides structure, but emotion provides movement. The voice must carry both, the precision of logic and the warmth of feeling. Only then does it pierce both mind and heart. A speech cold with intellect may inform, but only a speech warm with sincerity transforms. Consider Charles M. Schwab, who rose from steel worker to the heights of industry. His genius was not only in managing operations, but in managing men. His presence kindled enthusiasm because he was himself aflame with belief. He never feigned cheerfulness. It was natural because he believed in his mission. When he spoke, executives forgot the figures and felt the faith. His words aligned with his spirit, and his spirit commanded. Beware the danger of borrowed enthusiasm. It is the counterfeit coin of persuasion. Some men mimic the gestures, the voice, the energy of conviction. Yet beneath the performance lies emptiness. The audience senses the false note instantly. True enthusiasm is quiet strength. Imitation is restless noise. The world rewards sincerity because sincerity is the mark of mental alignment. Sincerity is the tuning fork of speech. When struck by genuine purpose, it vibrates in harmony with all who hear. No listener can resist the resonance of truth. It reaches beyond intellect and speaks directly to spirit. To cultivate this, think not of impressing others, but of expressing truth clearly. When your motive is clean, your tone will ring clear. Before you speak, settle the heart. If your intention wavers, your voice will wander. If your purpose is divided, your phrases will falter. Take time to unify motive and message. Ask, what do I wish this man to feel? What do I wish him to believe? What do I wish him to do? Then let your words serve that purpose alone. Everything else is noise. Observe how emotion affects voice. The tone of a calm heart differs from that of a fearful one. The tone of faith vibrates differently from that of uncertainty. When you are fully persuaded within yourself, the rhythm of your breath changes. Your eyes steady, your words carry conviction unconsciously. No technique can imitate this. It is the natural result of inner alignment. Practice this exercise daily. Stand before a mirror, state your definite chief aim, and speak it aloud until your tone, face, and feeling harmonize. Continue until your expression flows without effort. When your heart and speech unite, you will feel an inner click, the moment when thought becomes power in motion. Do this until your aim and your voice are one unbroken current of faith. Affirmation. I speak from unity. My mind decides, my heart believes, my voice commands. Repeat this as the oath of communication. It will remind you that the persuasive voice is not an act of the lips, but a declaration of the whole being. Look to Thomas Edison. When he addressed his team, he spoke not merely of tasks, but of possibilities. His belief in unseen invention was so strong that others borrowed his confidence until it became their own. He never shouted, never argued. He simply believed aloud. His words carried authority because they carried harmony between vision and voice. When your mind, emotion, and expression are aligned, the listener feels peace in your presence. There is no struggle in your persuasion because your energy moves in one direction. Others trust harmony instinctively. It reminds them of order in a chaotic world. They surrender willingly to a will that is whole. The man who has achieved mental alignment does not try to convince. He allows others to perceive his conviction. His influence flows naturally, like heat from fire. The divided man may have better logic, but the unified man has more life. Logic instructs. Life inspires. Inspiration is the true art of persuasion. There is a rhythm in every effective speaker's tone. It is not the rhythm of rehearsed performance, but of thought, feeling, and expression moving as one continuous stream. When the rhythm is broken, attention falters. When it flows, attention follows effortlessly. Therefore, avoid contradiction in thought, inconsistency in emotion, or excess in gesture. Let everything serve the message. To maintain alignment, you must live what you speak. If your words praise discipline, but your habits betray sloth, your tone will reveal the hypocrisy before critics can. The subconscious cannot hide inconsistency. Integrity is the invisible power that keeps speech straight. You cannot speak persuasively of principles you do not obey. The world may not see your private conduct, but it will hear it in your voice. Faith, emotion, and thought are the three strings of persuasion's instrument. Tune them daily. Too much reasoning dulls warmth. Too much emotion clouds clarity. Too little belief kills both. Balance is mastery. When in balance, your words strike the exact note needed for influence. Never speak while doubting. Silence is stronger than uncertain speech. Doubt poisons tone, and tone betrays doubt before words can disguise it. Better to pause and realign than to continue divided. One moment of inward stillness can restore harmony faster than 1,000 rehearsed sentences. Persuasion is the art of transmitting inner conviction without distortion. It is mental electricity flowing through the conductor of speech. The wire must be clear of resistance, fear, insincerity, or self-consciousness, else the current weakens. The purest conductor is unity of purpose. Speak from it, and your influence will glow. This law of mental alignment transforms speech into leadership. Men follow not the one who pleads, but the one who embodies belief. They feel his certainty and find in it refuge from their own hesitation. He becomes a living standard by which they measure courage. His words guide because his being commands. Harmony of mind and voice is the unseen melody of power. Each time you think, feel, and express as one, you train your subconscious to operate as a single unit. With repetition, the habit of unity becomes your nature. Then persuasion ceases to be an act and becomes identity. You will no longer perform influence, you will be influence. In every conversation, alignment decides authority. Speak from divided thought, and your power scatters. Speak from unified conviction, and your words will strike like an arrow to the mark. The listener will not know why he believes you. He will simply feel that he must. The law works quietly, but it never fails. Therefore, before addressing others, address yourself. Align your purpose with truth, your emotion with faith, your tone with calm. Say within, "My thought is clear, my feeling pure, my voice steady." Let this inner trinity rule your speech. When you speak thus, resistance melts and persuasion becomes effortless. The man who unites these three powers within becomes irresistible. He speaks and decisions are made, not because he dominates, but because his mind, heart, and voice act as one law. To listen to such a man is to feel order returning to chaos. His certainty becomes the listener's clarity. This is the secret of all enduring influence. Hold this as a final command to your own spirit. I am undivided. My thought, my emotion, and my voice serve one master, purpose. Therefore, my words cannot fail, for truth speaks through unity. When you have reached this alignment, you will find that persuasion is no longer effort, but expression. The world bends to the voice that is one with itself. No man is persuaded by argument alone. You may reason with another for hours, present proofs as strong as iron, and yet fail to move him an inch. But one sentence spoken with emotion will bend his mind as the wind bends the reed. For men are not machines of logic. They are instruments of feeling. Emotion is the unseen hand that steers the intellect, and he who understands this law governs men without their knowing it. Logic convinces minds, but emotion moves lives. You have seen this in your own affairs. A man may agree with your reasoning and yet do nothing about it. Another, stirred by faith or enthusiasm, acts at once. The difference lies not in knowledge, but in feeling. The master communicator therefore studies the currents of emotion as a navigator studies the tides. He learns to awaken them honorably, to direct them toward definite ends. Every human being, whether he admits it or not, is guided by the same inner motives: desire for gain, fear of loss, hunger for belonging, pride in ability, need of security, longing for importance. Persuasion is the art of awakening these motives through speech so that the listener's own energy moves him to act. To manipulate them is deceit. To harmonize with them is genius. When you speak, never forget that behind every mind sits a heart, and behind every heart a dream. If your words do not touch that dream, your reasoning will die stillborn. But if you awaken feeling, logic becomes your servant. Emotion opens the gate. Reason builds the road. One without the other is useless. Consider the story of Dr. Frank Gunsaulus. For years, he dreamed of founding a college where young men could study practical philosophy. He had no money, only belief. One Sunday, he stood before his congregation and declared with absolute conviction that within days he would receive $1 million to make the dream real. His certainty, his emotion, his faith swept through the audience like flame through dry leaves. Before the week ended, one man gave him the full sum. Gunsaulus had persuaded not through logic, but through emotion harmonized with faith. Before you speak, feel deeply the emotion you wish others to feel. If you wish them to have confidence, speak from confidence. If you wish them to believe, let your tone breathe belief. Emotion is contagious. The mind is sensitive to vibration. It catches moods faster than thought. One calm heart can quiet a room of anger. One enthusiastic spirit can lift a weary assembly to action. Every emotion produces a tone, and others unconsciously match it. This is the law of inner vibration. When your emotion and intention unite, you create a rhythm that draws all who hear into its pattern. Speak with courage, and you will find courage rising in your listeners. Speak with gratitude, and hearts will open. Speak with love of purpose, and men will feel dignity in your cause. The great F.W. Woolworth understood this law. When he was ridiculed for his 5 and 10 cent stores, he answered laughter with humor, faith, and good cheer. His optimism was unshakable, his energy contagious. Investors who once mocked him soon begged to join him. He had mastered the psychology of emotional influence. He understood that joy persuades more effectively than justification. Emotion is the breath of faith. Without it, belief remains an idea. With it, belief becomes power. A cold truth never saved a soul. A warm one has turned entire nations toward greatness. Let your words, therefore, be alive with feeling. Do not recite them. Believe them. Speak as though every syllable carried your fortune. When you feel your message as fire within, your audience will feel its warmth without. Remember that emotion, like flame, must be guided, or it consumes rather than illuminates. The wise speaker controls intensity as a blacksmith controls heat. Too little fire and metal remains unmoved. Too much and it melts without form. So too must you balance passion with poise. The calm beneath the fervor gives words their dignity. Emotion without discipline is noise. Emotion directed by will is power. Persuasion is rhythm. Every effective sentence has tempo. Rise and fall, breath and pause, silence and sound. Listen to your own speech. Feel its cadence. Speech is music, and the audience responds to tone before meaning. A pause before a truth can double its force. The pause is not emptiness, it is expectancy. Silence draws the listener inward, making him a participant in your message. Those who fear silence weaken their words. Affirm daily this principle. My feeling shapes my words. I speak faith, I breathe conviction, I awaken desire. Repeat it until the rhythm of your speech carries this assurance. Let your emotion be your ally, not your master. Rule it gently as a horseman guides a spirited steed. Firm hand, calm voice, clear direction. Then emotion will work for you with tireless strength. Let us examine why emotion persuades where intellect fails. The subconscious mind, which governs habit and action, speaks the language of feeling. It does not reason, it reacts. It is impressed by intensity, repetition, and belief. Therefore, if you wish to influence another, you must first influence this deeper mind. Speak not only to his reason, but to his emotional sense of what is right, safe, or desirable. The subconscious cannot resist vivid feeling expressed with confidence. The greatest communicators are those who can awaken emotion without violating integrity. They use feeling to serve truth, not to disguise it. Deception may succeed briefly, but it dies quickly. Real persuasion uplifts both speaker and listener. The man who manipulates for gain builds his own ruin. The man who inspires for service builds an empire that endures. Observe the example of Charles Schwab once more. When steelworkers quarreled and morale dropped, he did not scold. He praised sincerely, smiled generously, and found good in their efforts. His emotions softened hearts. Through warmth and appreciation, he restored unity. He knew that kindness persuades where command repels. Every man wishes to be seen as capable. Appeal to that desire and loyalty becomes natural. Emotion also guides timing. Know when to press and when to wait. If you feel tension rise, pause. Let your silence absorb heat. If enthusiasm wanes, introduce energy with renewed faith. You are the conductor of invisible forces. Your awareness is your baton. The best communicators are sensitive to these inner shifts. They adjust tone instinctively. Beware of false passion. When emotion is forced, it repels. When genuine, it attracts. The body cannot counterfeit the resonance of sincerity. If your aim is selfish, your tone will betray it. The subconscious of others is your judge. It cannot be deceived. Therefore, cleanse your motive before you raise your voice. Speak not to display power, but to deliver value. Speech used rightly blesses both giver and receiver. When you master emotional guidance, you will notice a change in how others respond. They will lean forward when you speak, not because of the words, but because they feel understood. They will sense in your tone something noble, something that awakens their own higher nature. You will no longer push ideas into them. You will draw their belief outward. This is the difference between manipulation and inspiration. The law of emotional influence applies not only to audiences, but to every conversation. Speak to a child, a friend, or a colleague with genuine emotion, and watch how trust grows. Indifference is death to communication. Emotion is life. Even a rebuke spoken with care inspires more than a compliment spoken with coldness. Emotional mastery is spiritual mastery. When you rule your emotions, you rule the invisible forces that move men. Do not suppress them, refine them. Passion is holy when directed by purpose. The man who feels deeply yet calmly is irresistible. Others sense his power and follow without command. He has become what all men long to be: alive, decisive, sincere. Let this reflection close our lesson. The mind persuades by design, the heart persuades by devotion. Unite the two, and you possess the full art of influence. Speak truth with warmth, conviction with calm, faith with humility. Then your words will not merely convince, they will convert doubt into belief, indifference into desire, hesitation into decision. Repeat to yourself this affirmation before you address another soul. My emotion serves my purpose. I feel what I wish others to feel. My tone awakens courage, faith, and goodwill. My words carry power because my heart carries truth. Let it be said of you, as it was of every man who shaped history with words, that when you spoke, hearts caught fire, minds saw light, and action followed naturally. For logic teaches, but emotion transforms, and transformation is the true measure of persuasive power. Before a single word leaves your mouth, your presence has already begun to speak. It tells the world how you regard yourself, how you regard others, and whether you are to be heard or dismissed. Presence is silent speech. It broadcasts conviction long before language begins. Every movement, every pause, every breath reveals the rank of your inner command. People decide whether to listen to you before they understand a single word. Their judgment is not formed by logic, but by impression. The mind instinctively asks, does this man believe himself? Does he know what he is saying? Is he certain of his place? If the answer is yes, attention follows. If no, nothing you say afterward can fully persuade. For authority begins in carriage, not in vocabulary. Presence is invisible power felt more than seen. It is the quiet certainty of one who does not need to prove himself. The louder the boast, the weaker the self-belief. The man who owns his thoughts does not demand attention. Attention obeys him. You have seen such men, those whose calm fills the room, whose silence weighs more than another's argument. They possess what I call the composure of kingship. Once a young salesman trembled as he stood before a wealthy client. His voice hurried, his hands betrayed unease, his sentences tangled in apology. The deal faltered. On another day, after studying self-control, he tried again. This time he slowed his breath, steadied his hands, and spoke only after full pauses. The client leaned in, feeling calm where once there had been pressure. The sale was secured. The man later confessed, I said less, but meant more. His power grew not from words, but from presence. Silence is the amplifier of power. Weak men fear it because it exposes insecurity. Wise men use it because it multiplies significance. A pause before speaking is a declaration of confidence. The hasty man betrays desperation. The composed man governs pace and rhythm as a conductor governs music. He understands that anticipation magnifies impact. When he pauses, the listener leans forward, compelled by curiosity and respect. There exists what I call the pause of dominance, the brief stillness between thought and word in which authority gathers. The impatient speaker rushes past it. The master uses it to charge the next sentence with power. Observe the speeches of great leaders and you will notice it. The silence that says, "Attend, something important is coming." Consider Woodrow Wilson. His voice was measured, his pauses deliberate, his tone restrained. Others shouted, he reasoned. Others gestured wildly. He stood composed. Yet when he spoke, his calm words carried further than the noise of others. His listeners felt they were hearing truth weighed and chosen, not thrown carelessly. His pauses commanded more attention than the clamor of lesser men. Physical stillness mirrors mental control. The restless gesture, the tapping hand, the shifting feet, these reveal inner turbulence. The body always betrays the mind. If you would master speech, master stillness. Let your movements be purposeful, your posture upright, your eyes steady. Stillness is not rigidity, it is centered strength. A single deliberate gesture from composure influences more deeply than 100 restless motions from nervousness. When you speak, use rhythm. Short sentences followed by calm silence build emphasis. The mind of your listener needs moments to absorb power. Do not fear these pauses. They are part of your melody. Persuasion is not a race. It is a dance. Those who rush their steps stumble. Those who move with control lead the floor. Affirm daily this creed: my calm is contagious. My silence commands. I speak from stillness, and stillness multiplies my power. Practice breathing slowly before important conversations. Inhale confidence. Exhale doubt. The voice obeys breath. When breath is steady, tone is steady. No actor, no orator, no statesman achieves greatness without learning to breathe as a master of himself. Remember Henry Ford, who often let others speak until they revealed all their thoughts. He listened in silence, weighing every word. When he finally spoke, his sentences were short, his meaning unshakable. Because he said little, each word seemed golden. His restraint made his counsel irresistible. Power often lies not in what is said, but in what is left unsaid. Silence is not emptiness. It is presence intensified. It signals control of time. The one who pauses shows he is not hurried by pressure. The one who fills every gap with chatter exposes need for approval. To master persuasion, you must learn to rest comfortably within silence. It is the throne upon which authority sits. Use silence as a weapon of peace. In argument, the loudest voice loses. When others shout, lower your tone. When they rush, slow down. Calmness disarms fury as water quenches fire. The opponent who meets tranquility feels foolish for anger. The listener who hears serenity feels compelled to listen. In this way, presence itself persuades more than reasoning. In every conversation, control the rhythm of speech. Alternate sound and stillness as nature alternates day and night. No one can listen forever without pause. Give them space to absorb your thought. When silence follows conviction, your listener completes the sentence within himself, and the idea becomes his own. That is the highest form of persuasion. Presence also depends on moral posture. You cannot stand firmly outward if your conscience trembles inward. The man whose motive is pure carries an invisible peace that no acting can imitate. He may pause often, but each pause radiates sincerity. The dishonest man, fearing exposure, cannot hold silence without discomfort. Integrity steadies the body as faith steadies the voice. Be deliberate with gesture. When you move, let movement carry meaning. The hand lifted to emphasize a point, the step forward to close a thought, the still gaze to punctuate conviction. These are physical affirmations of mental order. But when you flail aimlessly, you scatter energy. Each motion must serve purpose, as every word must serve truth. Learn to study rooms before speaking. Presence begins before introduction. Stand with quiet dignity, observe in stillness, and let others feel your composure. Those who hurry to dominate attention reveal insecurity. Those who hold themselves calmly inspire curiosity. By the time you speak, hearts are already open. When you speak to a group, let your eyes travel slowly. Fast glances appear anxious. Steady gaze transmits assurance. Each look should rest long enough to connect, but not long enough to challenge. The listener must feel included, not examined. Influence grows in those who feel seen and respected. True authority is gentle, never overbearing. Pause also at endings. The final silence after your words allows them to sink deeply. Resist the urge to fill that moment. Great truths need space to echo. Trust your message enough to let it stand unaccompanied. The pause after strength is reverence for truth. There is an unspoken aura around men who command silence, crowds quiet as they enter. This aura is not mystical. It is the accumulation of disciplined thought, emotional control, and moral clarity. The man who practices these daily emits assurance as naturally as a lamp emits light. The world bows to such presence, not out of fear, but out of recognition of order. Silence, when mastered, becomes language itself. It communicates patience, authority, understanding, and peace. The one who fears it is ruled by others. The one who commands it rules himself. You will know you have reached mastery when your pauses make others wait willingly, when your quietness carries comfort instead of tension. Let this truth be fixed in your mind. Every act of restraint increases influence. To remain still when others tremble, to remain quiet when others argue, to remain composed when others panic, these are proofs of power. Words may fail, but composure never does. It is persuasion beyond speech. Repeat to yourself before every important meeting, I bring calm where others bring confusion. I carry silence as strength, not absence. My composure teaches others to trust my words before they are spoken. With this conviction, your very bearing will communicate leadership. Presence and silence are the twin pillars of authority. Together they make the voice of a man heavier with meaning, slower with purpose, calmer with confidence. They convert ordinary sentences into commands and common ideas into convictions. Learn to wield them, and your influence will outlast your speech. When you leave a room, let your silence remain behind as a presence felt but unseen, the quiet assurance that truth was spoken and need not shout. The world will always yield to the man who governs himself so completely that even his pauses persuade. Persuasion is not born from complexity, it springs from clarity. The man who speaks with simplicity rules those who cloud their meaning with many words. Confusion weakens authority. Definiteness strengthens it. Speech, like a blade, cuts best when it is clean and sharp. The purpose of words is not to decorate thought, but to direct it with precision toward a definite result. Words are tools, not ornaments. The man of influence selects them as a craftsman selects his instruments. Each has a purpose and none is wasted. The untrained speaker speaks to fill silence. The master speaks to fill understanding. The first seeks applause. The second seeks effect. One is content to sound impressive. The other insists on being clear. Every great builder begins with a plan. So must you before you speak. Form a clear mental blueprint of the outcome you wish to create. Decide first what you want your listener to think, to feel, and to do. Then every word becomes a brick laid toward that design. Without such preparation, speech wanders as a traveler without map or compass. Andrew Carnegie once addressed a hall of laborers. His sentences were short, his imagery plain, his tone certain. He painted in simple words the vision of what industry could become if men worked with unity of purpose. The workers understood at once. They felt themselves part of something larger. His simplicity created clarity, and clarity created loyalty. The complicated man often loses his audience. The clear man gains their faith. Long explanations weaken persuasion. Brevity intensifies it. Each additional word is a step away from the heart of your message. The listener's attention is precious currency. Spend it wisely. Every sentence should either move belief or lose it. When you find yourself repeating what could be said once with certainty, you are not strengthening conviction. You are suffocating it. The man who speaks with precision is trusted. The one who rambles is doubted. Vagueness is the fog where influence is lost. To speak precisely, first think precisely. Indefinite thought breeds indefinite speech. The disciplined mind cuts away excess until only the essential remains. The listener then feels safe, as a traveler does when the path is clear and straight. Remember this: people remember images, not arguments. A single vivid picture persuades more than 100 explanations. Elbert Hubbard understood this truth. His essays and speeches were short, direct, and painted with living pictures. He spoke of men and principles in stories simple enough for a child, yet profound enough for a philosopher. His clarity reached where intellect alone could not. Use examples, analogies, and stories to make ideas breathe. They bypass the barriers of reasoning and speak directly to the imagination. When you tell a story, your listener sees what you mean rather than struggles to understand what you say. The mind resists instruction but welcomes imagination. Make your words windows, not walls. Tone, too, demands variety and rhythm. Speak as nature breathes, in waves. Monotony numbs, rhythm awakens. A change in pace or emphasis reclaims attention more surely than a shout. Speak some sentences as short blows of certainty, others as long flowing lines of reflection. Together, they create melody, the natural harmony of conviction and calm. Affirm daily. My words are clear, my thoughts are definite, my message strikes like truth itself, simple, direct, and undeniable. This affirmation disciplines your tongue to serve thought rather than vanity. The temptation to speak cleverly is the greatest enemy of clarity. The purpose of speech is not to prove intellect, but to awaken understanding. Abraham Lincoln gave the world a perfect example in his address at Gettysburg. In less than 3 minutes, he spoke sentences that have outlived centuries. There was no ornament, no flourish, only purpose. His simplicity gave birth to immortality. People feel sincerity when it is expressed without excess. The simplest truth shines brightest because it reflects no vanity. Confusion in speech arises from confusion in motive. Ask yourself before you open your mouth, why am I speaking? Is it to serve truth, to uplift others, to clarify thought, or to be admired? If the motive is pure, clarity follows naturally. If vanity intrudes, clarity dies. The world always senses whether your words are service or show. In every conversation, your listener secretly asks 3 questions. Does this man know what he means? Does he believe what he says? Does he care that I understand? If you answer yes through clarity, belief, and warmth, persuasion is inevitable. If you answer no through confusion, the listener may nod, but his heart will remain untouched. Never confuse simplicity with weakness. Simplicity is not the absence of knowledge, but the mastery of it. It is the power to compress understanding into essence. The greatest thinkers are the plainest speakers. They have refined truth until only strength remains. Complexity often hides insecurity. Simplicity reveals confidence. If you would persuade, avoid the clutter of excessive adjectives and meaningless words. Speak plainly as you would to a child or a friend. The mark of true intellect is the ability to make the complex simple, not the simple complex. The world bows to the man who can express great ideas in few words because it recognizes in him mastery of thought. Clarity also demands honesty. The listener must feel that what you say is exact, not exaggerated. When you stretch the truth even slightly, your tone loses balance. Precision in speech is moral discipline as well as mental. Speak what is accurate, not what is convenient. Nothing strengthens persuasion like trust. Nothing destroys it faster than suspicion. Let your sentences be firm but flexible, firm in direction, flexible in tone. Adjust pace and emphasis to the listener's level of understanding. Speak slowly enough for your meaning to land, but not so slow that your energy fades. Each word should feel deliberate, necessary, alive. Too much haste blurs impact. Too much caution kills vitality. Balance is the golden rule of clarity. Practice speaking aloud short truths with complete conviction. Say them as though engraving them upon stone. Courage builds men. Doubt destroys them. A definite aim commands results. Simplicity is strength. Each phrase trains your subconscious to express conviction in few words. The mind, like muscle, grows strong through disciplined repetition. Observe the masters of influence: Edison, Ford, Carnegie. None were elaborate speakers, yet all persuaded nations. Why? Because they knew what they meant, said it plainly, and believed it absolutely. Their words were few, because their thoughts were definite. The power of their conviction carried where rhetoric would have failed. Mental overspeech is the disease of the insecure. When a man doubts his message, he tries to hide uncertainty behind sound. He speaks too much because he believes too little. Silence between clear sentences is more persuasive than endless talking. When you know your idea is true, you need not decorate it. Truth defends itself. Picture your words as arrows. Each must be aimed, balanced, and released with precision. Do not shoot wildly and hope that one will strike. Take aim through thought. Draw strength from conviction. Release with calm. The listener feels the force of directed simplicity. 1,000 scattered words cannot equal one that finds its mark. Practice clarity until it becomes instinct. The disciplined speaker pauses before responding, arranges thought, and delivers it plainly. Over time, his voice gains the calm assurance of mastery. Others will listen longer, remember more, and trust deeper because his meaning is never lost in fog. Finally, remember this law. The simpler your message, the more complex its echo. When words are few but charged with faith, they live on in the listener's mind, expanding with his reflection. Speak once with power, and your silence will continue the persuasion long after you depart. Speak truth plainly. Let purpose replace performance. Let clarity replace cleverness. When simplicity governs your words, your speech becomes an instrument of command. The simplest expression of truth is the most enduring expression of power. Persuasion does not mean pushing your thought into another's mind. It means awakening his own. The great communicators never force, they reveal. They do not overpower the listener. They make him recognize himself in their words. This is the law of reflection, the ability to speak so that another feels understood, seen, and inspired to follow willingly. Every man hungers for recognition of his unseen self. Within each soul is a silent voice pleading, "Understand me. See what I see. Believe what I feel but cannot say." When your speech gives language to that hidden voice, the listener feels that you speak for him, not at him. In that instant, he lowers his guard and opens his heart. The most persuasive speech in the world is the one that makes the listener say within himself, "That is true of me." To persuade, you must first listen, not with ears only, but with imagination. You must sense the hidden motive behind words, the emotion beneath logic, the longing behind complaint. The man who listens deeply gains more influence than the man who talks cleverly. Listening is not passivity. It is preparation for precision. It gathers the materials with which true persuasion is built. A young salesman once struggled to close his transactions. He spoke eloquently, but his clients resisted. One day, he changed his method. Instead of describing his product, he asked about their concerns, repeated their fears, and reflected their desires in his responses. He made them feel understood before he offered his solution. Within weeks, his results doubled. His power came not from selling, but from mirroring. People obey those who understand them. The principle is simple yet profound. Agreement begins with understanding. You cannot lead a man until you first walk beside him. The listener must feel the warmth of kinship before he accepts the authority of guidance. Empathy is the bridge from his world to yours. Cross it first, then invite him to follow back. True communication mirrors not only words, but emotion. When another speaks with frustration, meet it with calm acknowledgement. When he speaks from hope, reflect optimism. When he speaks in doubt, answer with faith. Reflection does not mean imitation. It means alignment of understanding. By showing that you comprehend his state, you earn the right to influence it. Napoleon Bonaparte mastered this law on the battlefield and in council. Before commanding his soldiers, he spoke their language, shared their hardships, and honored their courage. He called them "my children," and they adored him. When he later gave commands, they obeyed without hesitation. He mirrored their spirit first, then led it to his vision. Connection before direction. This is leadership through reflection. Speech that lacks empathy becomes command without loyalty. You may force obedience for a time, but it will dissolve when pressure lifts. Only the leader who understands his followers commands their hearts as well as their hands. This same law governs persuasion in every walk of life: business, friendship, family, and public address. When you reflect a man's inner truth, I have said, he hears his own conscience in your voice. He begins to trust you because he recognizes himself in you. Your influence becomes personal. You cease to be an outsider and become his ally. Such influence cannot be purchased, and it cannot be resisted. The imaginative man rules communication because he feels what others feel. He steps beyond his own viewpoint and sees through the eyes of another. Imagination is the invisible cord that ties one mind to another. It translates your purpose into their experience. Without imagination, words fall lifeless. With it, they take root in the soil of another soul. Practice this. When preparing to speak, close your eyes and picture the listener's life, his worries, his hopes. Ask yourself, what truth does he most need to hear? How can my message relieve his burden or strengthen his courage? Then build your words around that answer. Persuasion is service. You lead best when you understand needs best. Empathy, however, must be joined with definiteness. To merely feel is sympathy. To guide feeling toward purpose is mastery. Once you have established connection, gently lead. Do not remain mirror. Become model. The one who reflects forever ceases to direct. The goal is to harmonize first, then elevate. Influence is the art of lifting another's thought to a higher plane without breaking the bond of understanding. Dr. David Starr Jordan, the educator, exemplified this. He inspired students not through command, but through reflection. He awakened in them the confidence they already possessed but had forgotten. His words were mirrors of their potential. They left his presence believing not in him, but in themselves. That is the highest persuasion, to awaken self-belief in another. When you speak thus, people will say afterward, "He understands me. He sees what I could be." They will feel drawn to your company and your counsel. This is not flattery, it is resonance. You have tuned your message to the deeper vibration of their mind. They cannot resist what feels like recognition of truth. Use the power of repetition in this art. When you state what the listener already feels, repeat it with emphasis. Each repetition deepens rapport. You want stability. You deserve it. You fear uncertainty, but you are capable of mastering it. Each echo strengthens belief. The subconscious loves repetition because it mistakes it for truth. Use this not to deceive, but to confirm the noble in others. Affirm before every conversation, "I listen with understanding. I speak with truth. My words reveal to others their own strength. When this becomes habit, persuasion becomes character. People will find peace in your company, clarity in your speech, and direction in your example. Reflection also governs tone. The tone of understanding carries warmth. The tone of arrogance carries frost. People close their minds when they feel judged. They open them when they feel valued. Therefore, make your tone an instrument of kindness. Speak firmly, but with goodwill. Command without contempt, instruct without superiority. Men yield gladly to those who respect them. If you find resistance in a listener, do not push harder. Reflect deeper. Resistance is not rebellion, it is misunderstanding. Show him that you see his view clearly, then gently lead him to broader understanding. The one who feels seen is willing to see anew. Reflection melts opposition where argument would harden it. Remember, the aim of persuasion is not victory, but harmony. When two minds move together toward truth, both are enriched. Persuasion achieved through empathy endures because it leaves dignity intact. Those who lose argument resent it. Those who feel understood remember it with gratitude. Train your imagination as carefully as your diction. Before entering a room, imagine the atmosphere you wish to create. Feel within yourself the calm confidence, the compassion, the decisiveness you intend others to mirror. Emotion precedes expression. What you hold inwardly, you will reflect outwardly. The world is your mirror. Align your inner state, and others will align to you. The greatest proof of this law lies in how swiftly people adopt the mood of a confident leader. One man walks into a room filled with anxiety, and within minutes, calm spreads. Another enters with irritation, and tension rises. Neither has spoken a word. Their presence reflects their inner state, and others mirror it unconsciously. That is why the man who governs himself governs others without command. And every conversation with understanding, not with victory. Make your listener feel richer for having met you, richer in clarity, in courage, or in confidence. Then persuasion becomes service, and service is eternal. The man who helps another understand himself wins influence that no rivalry can destroy. Let this law be your creed. I reflect the best in others. I understand before I instruct. I lead without forcing. I awaken truth already present. To speak thus is to persuade not through power, but through purpose. Reflection is the invisible thread that binds hearts before minds have time to resist. When you have mastered this art, you will find that people change around you naturally. They will think more clearly, act more confidently, and trust more deeply. They will not know why, but you will. You have learned to speak into the mind of another, not as a conqueror, but as a mirror of his highest self. The true measure of persuasive power is not how many you convince in a moment, but how many remember you after you are gone. A temporary victory of speech is nothing beside the enduring authority of character. Words may pass, but the spirit that uttered them remains. That is the crown of influence, moral authority. Without it, eloquence is a sword without edge. With it, even a whisper carries weight beyond measure. Persuasion divorced from conscience becomes manipulation, and manipulation dies young. It may dazzle for an hour, but it decays with the first breath of doubt. The world remembers voices that uplift, not those that deceive. Men will forgive mistakes of judgment, but they never forget a betrayal of trust. To speak persuasively, one must first live truthfully. Speech is only an echo of being. The man whose motive is pure carries invisible power. Others may not analyze it, yet they feel it. His tone carries calm authority. His words command belief before reason approves. Such a man needs no tricks, no performance. His integrity itself is argument. The world bows not before cleverness, but before clean motive. Observe Abraham Lincoln. He persuaded not through oratory alone, but through character. His words were extensions of his conscience. He spoke softly, but his moral weight could move armies. When he said, With malice toward none, with charity for all, he spoke what he lived. His persuasion endured because it rose from justice, mercy, and faith in the good of men. Moral authority is the highest currency of influence. You may win attention with brilliance, but you win hearts with trust. Trust is built by consistency between belief and behavior, speech and conduct, promise and fulfillment. Break it once, and you spend years repairing what could have been guarded by one moment of honesty. The world is filled with men who can talk. It listens only to those who embody. You cannot separate your message from your example. One gives power to the other. Every sentence carries your moral signature. If that signature is forged, your influence collapses. Speak always from alignment with principle, and you will never need to raise your voice. There is a difference between the applause of the crowd and the respect of the conscience. The first vanishes with the echo. The second endures through generations. The man who speaks for truth may not be cheered today, but time will defend his words. The man who speaks for gain may prosper briefly, but history will erase his name. The crown of influence is bestowed by eternity, not by fashion. Booker T. Washington understood this. He spoke to those who despised him and left them silent with respect. His tone was gentle but unwavering, his motive pure, his patience endless. Even his critics felt compelled to honor him, for his voice carried moral gravity. He asked for no sympathy, offered no anger, only calm demonstration of dignity. That is persuasion beyond rhetoric. It is virtue commanding recognition. People feel the difference between one who wants something from them and one who wants something for them. The first provokes resistance, the second invites allegiance. Purity of motive shines through every word. When you speak to serve rather than to profit, the world unconsciously aligns with you. For truth is magnetic. It attracts all that is like itself. Affirm this always. I speak with integrity. My words heal, build, and inspire. My motive is pure. Therefore, my power is permanent. Repeat it until every phrase you utter carries the fragrance of sincerity. When you speak thus, even silence between your sentences becomes convincing. The world senses your intention before it hears your idea. Understand that moral authority is born of inner discipline. You cannot govern your words until you have governed your thoughts. You cannot influence others until you have conquered yourself. The untrained man says what pleases. The disciplined man says what is true. The first gains flattery. The second gains faith. Self-control is the proof of reliability. Reliability is the foundation of trust. Do not fear honesty. Truth may seem costly in the moment, but falsehood demands compound interest forever. A man who lies once must guard 1,000 untruths. A man who speaks truly sleeps in peace. Confidence in yourself comes from knowing that every word you speak can withstand scrutiny. The voice of integrity carries further than the voice of artifice. Your reputation is the echo of your character. Each word you speak contributes to that echo. Speak rashly, and it scatters. Speak rightly, and it reverberates for years. One betrayal can destroy what 10 virtues built. Guard your influence by guarding your honor. The man who treats speech as sacred will find that others treat his word as bond. Persuasion that uplifts others ennobles the speaker. Every time you use words to encourage, strengthen, or enlighten, you refine your own nature. Influence, when pure, purifies. It makes the heart generous, the mind clear, and the purpose strong. Those who speak with this spirit create not followers, but leaders, men who rise in their own dignity because you believed in their potential. When a man's speech serves the good of others, his influence becomes immortal. Dr. Frank Gonzalez, Carnegie, Edison, Lincoln, each built empires of thought that endure because they spoke with moral purpose. They sought not applause, but advancement of human possibility. The world cannot forget such men because their words carried the vibration of sincerity. Those who live these laws of persuasion, faith, clarity, calm, reflection, integrity become pillars of reliability in a restless age. Others seek them instinctively, as travelers seek light in fog. You will find that once your character is established as sound, your words carry authority even in absence. Decisions will be made in your favor because men trust your unseen presence. When your moral power ripens, your influence will outlast your efforts. A single phrase spoken from integrity will repeat itself in the minds of others long after you have ceased speaking. They will quote you without realizing it, follow your example without remembering its source. You will have achieved what every great soul desires, to impress truth upon eternity. Remember, the crown of influence is not granted. It is earned by constancy. You must polish it daily through self-examination. Ask yourself, were my motives clean? Did my words build or wound? Did I speak truth or convenience? Let conscience correct where pride resists. This is the true maintenance of greatness. When you reach mastery of speech joined with purity of motive, others will see you differently. They will speak of you as the man whose word is law, the one whose promise needs no witness, the voice that calms confusion. Business will seek you, friendship will trust you, and even adversaries will respect you, for they will recognize in you what they secretly wish to be, steady, certain, sincere. And so the full circle of persuasion is complete. It begins in thought, moves through faith, grows through emotion, steadies in silence, sharpens in clarity, softens in understanding, and crowns itself in integrity. Each law leads to the next, and together they form mastery of influence, the art of commanding not by force, but by faith and character. Now speak this final decree as one who has completed his training. I have mastered the art of speaking. My words carry faith. My tone carries truth. My silence carries weight. I persuade by principle, I lead by example, and life itself listens when I speak. Say it until your breath believes it, for this is not mere recital, it is coronation. The crown of influence rests not upon the eloquent tongue, but upon the honest heart. Keep it polished by service, and the world will forever bend its ear to your voice.